With the 15th pick and with the 26th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft, the Washington Redskins select Dwayne Haskins, Montez Sweat.
Welcome, all my fellow Redskin brethren and sistren. I am your man and resident Redskins fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on the Redskins Report. So I told you guys I would be back at some point before the game on Sunday, the patented, self-proclaimed Sean Taylor game. All right, 12th year that we have had a Redskins game after the anniversary of his death. It's either the game right before or the game right after. I decided to go with the game right after because it was closer, and that's how I do it. It's the game that's the closest to the anniversary of his death some 12 years ago. It never gets old talking about Sean Taylor. It never ceases to amaze me how many people have been touched by his brief but very impactful career. And it wasn't just a Redskins thing. You know, the whole entire NFL lost a hell of a football player. It's amazing how many fans of other teams, you know, either tweet at me or send me messages, or I just see it whether I'm scrolling on my timeline or someone else's, and I see people talking about Sean Taylor and the impact that he had, and they're not even fans of the Redskins. They're just football fans in general. And it wasn't hard to see why so many people fell in love with him and his game, because the guy was just one of the best we've ever seen do it. And as I've always said, and I think the thing that always frustrates me when I talk about Sean Taylor and his tragic passing is because he was just scratching the surface. I mean, the guy was going to be so much better, and he was already better than everybody else at that position, and he was only going to get better. I think that's the thing that we forget about, is that he wasn't here very long in the league. He was only a Washington Redskin. This was going to be his fourth season. Right? He was going through that fourth season. He had progressed into one of the most dominant forces, not just on defense or at the safety position, but in the entire league at any position. I mean, you don't ever see a safety in the discussion for, you know, NFL MVP, but I'm not talking crazy and saying that he would have won one, but I can tell you this much. With the way he played, it would not have shocked me if he were in the discussion for one at some point in his career. But that's nor here nor there. This is the Sean Taylor game for me. So I always ask that the Redskins go and get it. Generally, they don't. So I set the bar very low every year for them. And I'm like, hey, look, man, get me to November playing meaningful football. They failed to do that this year. Beat the Cowboys once. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that either. Generally, they fail at doing that as well. And one of my other goals before the season starts, can you please win me the Sean Taylor game? And generally, they fail at that as well. But I'm going to ask, as I always do, can you please go and get me the Sean Taylor game? Okay. Anyway, Redskins are facing the Carolina Panthers. We'll talk about that. I'll give you a preview and a quick synopsis of what I think is going to take place, how the Redskins can get a win, and I'll give you my final score for that football game. But before I do that, first and foremost, I'm being rude. Happy Thanksgiving. Hopefully your Thanksgiving was as enjoyable as mine was. I enjoyed the food. I enjoyed my family. I enjoyed my friends. I enjoyed the festivities. I enjoyed the football. I enjoyed the faith that all was encapsulated by Thanksgiving. There is no better holiday. I've said that numerous times. I talked about it on my podcast. I talked about Sean Taylor on my podcast. So if you haven't had a chance to check out the Louie T Network podcast, do yourself a favor and go and check out the latest episode number 64. But check out all the episodes for that matter. It's a great product, and I hope you guys enjoy it just as much as you enjoyed your Thanksgiving holiday. That being said, there was a report that came out. I talked about Kevin Sheehan's podcast, the Kevin Sheehan Show podcast, and how he believes that Bruce Allen is going to be fired. Now, as I mentioned, he thought Bruce Allen was going to get fired along with Jay Gruden last year, as so did I. That did not happen, and so he thinks that Bruce is going to be gone again this season. But this time he has a little bit more in terms of reinforcement, because he's got some guys behind the scene that he's talked to and been in communication with that firmly believe that Daniel Snyder is starting to be at wit's end with this entire situation and puts a lot of the blame squarely on the lap of Bruce Allen, who continuously talks about being close. And obviously we're not close, unless you're meaning close to not having anyone show up on Sundays in the stadium. Then this team isn't close to much of anything right now. Or maybe close to the first overall pick in the draft. They're closer to that than they are a playoff team. So again, I don't know what close Bruce is referring to, but at this point, Dan is getting frustrated and he's becoming increasingly antsy. That was the report that Kevin Sheehan was essentially pushing off and trying to give us. And he's not saying anything definite. He's not saying that Bruce is definitely getting fired or anything like that. But from his sources and how he feels, his gut feel, he believes that Bruce will be fired at season's end. I do not know that to be the case. I told you I am at 7%. I'm going to stay at 7%. Because I don't think Bruce is going anywhere when this season is over. I think he will still be in power. Now, I will say this. If Bruce is gone, I think it will be one of those mutual parting of ways where, he gets to retire and the Redskins aren't actually firing him, but rather Bruce is retired. I don't really give a damn what it is. I just want him gone. I don't care how it happens. And so we all saw the report today. I tweeted out about it. There was a little bit of a soundbite from NFL Network. They had, I forget the guy's name, Mike Garofalo was doing a little report, and he does these periodically throughout the show on the NFL show that they do on Saturday mornings and throughout the course of the week. It's not just Saturdays. But anyway, he was talking about the Redskins situation with Bruce Allen, and he said, look, he hasn't been able to confirm anything with, say, Dan Snyder or even Bruce Allen, but obviously, he's got sources within the building that say, look, man, and he pretty much echoed everything that Kevin Sheehan said, which is what I said on my tweet, which was, hey, Dan's getting antsy and it's really getting ugly right now. And you can get into the stadium for $4 and people aren't showing up and the Redskins are 2-9 and this is not a good football team. And this organization seems to be going in the wrong direction. And so all of these things transpiring, it's starting to resonate with Dan just a bit. And honestly speaking, I think once you start dipping into his pockets and starting to mess with his revenue, that's when Dan has an issue. And that's why I told you guys, we all have to do our part, even though it may feel like it's going in vain. And at times I feel like it's going in vain. You still have to go through with it. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And so I think now the issue isn't that we're losing football games. It's that fans aren't coming to these games, that they don't give a damn, and that he's starting to lose revenue on these regular season games. And so I think there's a level of desperation that starts to sink in when you look at the state of the franchise, you look at the FedEx Field on Sundays and how it's being occupied and the situation that has evolved over time. I think he's starting to realize that something has to be done. And we've seen this move from Dan before, and I've talked about that already. But the report came out that, something could be happening. Something could be imminent at season's end revolving around Bruce Allen. He could be out of here. There is a growing sense that Daniel Snyder is evaluating everything. And that was the thing that Mike Garofalo said is that, look, everything's on the table. And then one of the anchors said, well, not Bruce Allen being fired. And he looked at that anchor and said, everything is on the table and up for evaluation at season's end. So what he's essentially saying is no one's safe at this point, and that includes Bruce Allen. A lot of you took that and ran with it as if he was saying that Bruce was getting fired at season's end. Hey, pump your brakes, slow down, okay? Just because situations are being evaluated doesn't mean that anything's going to take place. As I tweeted out, I'm still at 7%. That didn't move the needle for me at all because everything that he said, Kevin Sheehan said 3 weeks ago. And I told you as much. And so I don't really feel like anything new was reported today. The only thing that I feel good about is now that it's out on a national stage. It's out into the national media. So now it's going to start to gain a little bit of traction. Does that mean anything? No, it doesn't mean anything. We've seen the fact that we had a hashtag, an entire hashtag trending as a popular hashtag on Twitter, where all you had to do was put in hashtag and F. And the first thing that would show up was fire Bruce Allen. We had it trending and nothing was done. I mean, that speaks volumes. And people have not been going to games for a while now. This just didn't happen overnight. It's gotten much worse now, but it's been eroding over time. And so all of these things kind of coming together all at once, it kind of all points to something being done at season's end. But that's what we thought last year, and nothing was done. But there was a big difference between this year and last year. Last year, we ended up finishing 7-9, 6-10, whatever it was. I think it was 7-9 last year. This year, we're not even going to come close to that. So maybe something will be done. We will see. But I just found it interesting that a lot of you were excited, way too jovial for a simple minute clip of Mike Garofalo talking about everything being on the table as if he said that Bruce was going to be fired as soon as the season was done. Like, there are no definites here. All he's saying is that everything will be assessed at the end of the season, and that includes Bruce Allen's position within the organization. That's all that he said, which is what I told you a week or two ago, which is what Kevin Sheehan told me a week or two ago, which, again, really means absolutely nothing until an action is actually taken. All right, so let's get to this Carolina Panthers game, shall we? And Redskins come into the game, winners of one game in a row, okay? They beat the Detroit Lions last week, and now they get the Carolina Panthers on the road. First time the Redskins have been on the road in a couple of weeks. They were at FedEx Field the last couple of weeks. So now they're on the road at Bank of America Stadium. And the guy that has normally killed us is no longer the quarterback in Carolina at this very moment, in Cameron Newton. So that's one thing we don't have to worry about. But the guy taking his place, Kyle Allen, hasn't been half bad this season. As a matter of fact, he's given the Panthers a shot this season, and they are right in the mix in the NFC South Division in terms of making the postseason. That division has been clinched already by the New Orleans Saints. However, the Carolina Panthers can still make the playoffs as a wild card. Now, they got a ton of work to do, and they can't lose any more games this season. But anything's possible in this league. We'll see what happens with the Panthers this week. But I can tell you this much. They're good enough defensively and offensively to blow us out in this football game if we're not careful. Let me put it to you this way. If we played the same type of game we played last week and much of the weeks we've played this season, we're going to be blown out in this game. The Panthers are good enough to do exactly that. They have a player that for much of the season was in the MVP discussion in Christian McCaffrey, and I think he's going to have a field day against us. I'd be shocked if he doesn't. They have a defense that isn't as good as it's been in the past. This is not the Carolina Panthers defense that we've come accustomed to seeing, that's been vaunted, that's been shutting teams down. But in any given week, they're capable of doing enough to compete. And against offenses like ours, these are the types of offenses that they usually dismantle and disassemble. And so they're second in the league in sacks, are these Panthers. They got the guy that I wanted in the draft in Brian Burns. I wanted him badly. And he's far outplaying and outperforming Montez Sweat, which is not a surprise to me because, to me, Montez Sweat was a raw product at Mississippi State. And, oh, by the way, we're not utilizing him correctly. And so I think that's going to take time, and he needs to be coached better. I thought Brian Burns was going to come in and right away be able to fit a 3-4 defensive scheme, which Sweat was not a stand-up outside linebacker in college. Brian Burns had some prior experience doing that. You saw his ability at the combine to flip his hips and drop into coverage and all of the things that you ask a 3-4 backer, outside backer to do. Burns was comfortable in doing that. That is not what Montez Sweat is. And so Sweat is more suited for a 4-3 defense and putting his hand in the dirt and not having to worry about two-gapping or worrying about any of that extra stuff that makes him have to think, but other than just get up the field and make a play. Brian Burns is making plays. They're getting after the quarterback. Mario Addison has been really good for them this season. They still got Luke Kuechly. They still got Shaq Thompson. They still got a defense that's very formidable. I actually like James Bradbury. Their other corner, Jackson, he's hit or miss. You could mess around and he can get 2 picks in a game, or you could torch him for 2 touchdowns. You really don't know what you're going to get, but he's a solid corner. And then they've got Reed back there, Eric Reed, and he's really good. And so is Trey Boston. I know a lot of you wanted Trey Boston in the offseason when he was available. And he's actually been pretty good for Carolina as well. So their defense is still good enough. This is what the Redskins are going to have to do in order to even have a chance. I don't foresee them winning this game. I'll just give you a spoiler alert. Don't see the Redskins winning this game. But then again, I didn't see them winning last week either. So it really doesn't mean much. But this is what the Redskins have to do in order to even have a shot come fourth quarter. And that's all you really can ask for at this point now, is just to have a shot. I think the first thing they have to do is they've got to be +2 in the turnover category. They can't afford to have a bunch of mistakes in this football game, and they can't afford to miss opportunities that do come their way, because Kyle Allen of late has given the opposition opportunities to force turnovers, whether they've been fumbles, and he's had an issue with that since he's gotten the nod with fumbles. He's fumbled a ton as the starting quarterback of the Carolina Panthers, and of late, he's been throwing interceptions. So he's giving you opportunities to flip field position, to start the offense off with the short field, or even take it the distance. He's giving you opportunities. You've got to take advantage of those opportunities if they are to come your way. So I think the Redskins need to be +2. If we turn it over once, we got to get 3 back, in order to have a shot in this game. I think that's something that is imperative, because the Redskins, we already aren't great at forcing turnovers, but even when we get them, we don't always do anything with them, as we saw a couple of weeks ago, versus the Jets. We're first forcing turnovers, but we're not doing anything with them, or even against the Lions. You know what I mean? Like, opportunities present themselves. We've got to take advantage, and we've got to score touchdowns. We've got to stop kicking field goals. I think that's another thing that you have to take into consideration. Carolina, this isn't like some of the Carolina teams we've seen struggle in past years when they haven't had it clicking on offense, that had found it hard to score. This team is capable of putting up 27 or 30 points in a blink of an eye if you're not careful. And our defense is very capable of giving up 30 points, as we've seen over and over and over and over and over and over again this season. So if we can't stop McCaffrey, and all of a sudden DJ Moore starts getting involved, and now Curtis Samuel is having big plays, and all of a sudden it's all coming together for them in the passing game, or with gadget plays and on the ground with McCaffrey and through the air with McCaffrey, they could easily score 31, and that's way out of our jurisdiction, okay? We've got to keep this a low-scoring game, and when I say low-scoring, right around 20, 23 max points. We can't go much higher than that. The Redskins, I found this stat interesting. I didn't even realize this, but I know we've been anemic on offense, so I probably should have known this, but I didn't think it was this bad. I thought, it didn't dawn on me, because I'm thinking, we beat Miami, so we probably scored some points. We haven't scored more than 17 points since week 2. Let that register in your brain for a second. That's how bad we have been this season at scoring points. We haven't scored, and when I first heard the stat, I said, man, shut up, stop lying, man. That's crazy talk. We going into week 13, you telling me we haven't scored more than 17 points since week 2 versus Dallas? Man, get out of here. That's nonsense. And then I went through the list of games. I went through the catalog, and we had the most we've scored since week 2 is 17. 17 damn points. So it's amazing. All right. Now, we were able to eclipse that last week versus the Detroit Lions, but that's insane that we've scored more than 17 3 times this season. Weeks 1 and 2 and week number 12. That's dumb. So we're not going to score a bunch of points is what I'm trying to tell you. So we've got to keep the score down in order to have a chance. The 2 games we won, 17-16, 19-16. So 16 seems to be the magic number. Carolina's going to score more than 16 points. However, if we can find a way to keep them right around 20, it'll give us a fighting chance. One of these weeks, you got to think Dwayne Haskins is going to throw for multiple touchdown passes, and not have it be in garbage time like it was against the Jets, but actually throw for multiple touchdown passes when the game is still in question and in doubt. And we're going to actually score up over 20 one of these weeks. If it's this week and we can hold Carolina down and we can force them to turn the ball over, hey, this could be the week we may be able to sneak in and sneak out with a dub on the road. We'll see. But I think those things are imperative, that the Redskins take advantage of opportunities, go +2 in the turnover margin, and keep the score down low where they can still hang and have a chance to win the football game. I think Dwayne Haskins has to be more accurate with the football, and he can't turn it over. He had a couple of turnovers last week, an interception and a fumble. That will get us beat this week. He's got to be damn near clean in terms of taking care of the football if the Redskins are going to have a shot to win this football game. And also, I think the Redskins have to have a little bit of balance. They got to be able to run the football to keep the pocket clean and keep the Panthers guessing as to what the Redskins are going to do. If the Redskins continuously find themselves in 3rd and long, it will be a long afternoon. And there'll be a lot of punts featuring Tressway and a lot of 3 and outs for this Redskins offense. They've got to find ways, and really it doesn't have to necessarily be the run game, but they've got to find a way to stay ahead of down and distance and ahead of the sticks On first down, they've got to find a way to get 4 or 5 yards. They can't be in 2nd and 8, and 2nd and 9, and 2nd and 10 consistently throughout this game, whether it's running or the short passing game, whatever the case may be. They've got to be in 2nd and 3rd and manageable to give them options in terms of play calling throughout the day. You get to the defense, and I think that it's, as I just mentioned, they got to keep the score down. They got to generate some turnovers, but I think it's imperative that they take Christian McCaffrey and reduce his impact on this game. You're not going to totally control him and stop him, but I think you have to find a way to limit his effectiveness. If he's got 93 yards rushing and another 87 receiving, we're going to lose, and we're going to lose very badly in this football game. If he's up over 160 total yards of offense, we are going to get smoked in this game. If he is right around 110 yards of total offense, let's say he's got 57 rushing and 60 receiving, hey, we'll take that. We'll take that. But if he's got 87 or 93 rushing and he's got another 85 receiving, we are toast in this football game. We've got to limit his impact because their offense goes as he goes. And if he gets into a rhythm, then everything else opens up, and all of a sudden DJ Moore is killing you and Curtis Samuel is killing you, and now they're starting to have their way with you offensively. And that we've seen the Redskins, when they can't stop a team, how ugly it can get very, very quickly. So I think Christian McCaffrey is the key. You kill the head, you cut the head off of the snake, and the rest of the body will die. And Christian McCaffrey for them is the head of that offensive attack. You cut him off, and the rest of that offense dies very slowly. So I think that's the key defensively. Is you got to be gap sound. You got to gang tackle this guy because he can make you miss and look silly out in space. And you got to be able to read your keys and know what is going on. And I feel like if Kyle Allen gives you some opportunities, and that's Dunny and Fabian Moreau all of a sudden now is making plays in that secondary, if he gives you some opportunity on some 50-50 balls, or he takes some risks, tries to fit it into some tight holes, guys have to find ways to make some plays. And oh, by the way, Grego is still doing it at a very high level. And we've always had issues with the tight end. Just see 2 weeks ago versus the Jets and Ryan Griffin. We have tight end issues in case you haven't been paying attention. Grego, type of guy that can exploit those tight end issues. Hopefully the Redskins are able to at least slow him down. So I said all of that to say this. I don't anticipate the Redskins winning this football game. As a matter of fact, I don't anticipate the Redskins having a chance at winning this game. At least the Redskins will score one offensive touchdown. Last week, they didn't score any offensive touchdowns. I think they'll get one, but it won't be nearly enough. 1 touchdown, 3 field goals gives you 16 points. Unfortunately, that's not enough to beat the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers will roll in this football game 33-16 over the Redskins, as the Redskins drop to 2-10 on the season. That's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me on this program. And remember, I am a Redskins fan. Etched in burgundy and gold, my Redskins spirit will never die. Redskins spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, hail to our beloved Washington Redskins. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the Louie T Network if you haven't already done so. Make sure you share this video. And, oh, by the way, check out the Louie T Network podcast, available on Stitcher, Google Music Play, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, and anywhere else you can get a podcast, including LouieTNetwork.net. And, oh, yeah, I want to know what you think is going to take place in this game. Leave it in the comment section. Score and more down below. And give me your assessment of the Bruce Allen situation. Does this give you more hope now that this has become a national story? Or are you still skeptical and treading very lightly with this situation, as you are not a firm believer that he will be fired at season's end? Leave it all down in the comment section below. I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. You know where to find me at Game's End, here for the R3, as we'll break it all down and talk about what happened in the Redskins Sunday afternoon contest at Carolina versus the Panthers. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a good one.
Louie T Network.